One love, God bless. Fire Nelson here, and today I'm here to talk to you about how suffering forces us to change. So lots of times in life, we ignore signs, little signs, signs in our life. We can call them red flags, or even in work scenarios or daily life scenarios, we sometimes surround ourselves in environments that are unknowingly toxic to us. And sometimes we do know that they're toxic. Sometimes we do realize that we get home from seeing this certain person or going to this certain job, and we get home and we feel drained, like we just want to go to bed and not do anything. Sometimes people don't change how they eat until small things pop up here and there in their health, or maybe in their superficial features, because no one wants to have the burden of living with the outwardly sickness. But lots of times we ignore that inner sickness. Lots of times we ignore even the little signs unless they are superficial, unless they affect our day-to-day habits, our day-to-day pleasures. We don't have to wait until we are completely in excruciating pain or in a terrible predicament to realize a change needs to happen. But for lots of individuals, they need that suffering almost, is what it seems. That as humans, we are naturally stubborn, and we kind of need that extra push to force us to change. We don't actually quit. We don't actually quit the job that we have and start up our own business until the boss has just gotten on our last nerve and they're making so much pay cuts, and you're barely breaking even. That type of suffering might force you to do things on the weekend, might force you to work on your business on the weekend, sell some products on the weekend, at a local farmer's market, or wherever you can, online, just setting it up. Suffering can push us to do things that we used to think we didn't have time for, that we would be losing too much sleep to do. But we have to get to a point sometimes in life where what suffering do we want? Do we want a suffering that has a pretty great chance of being a benefit not only to ourselves in the current state that we're in, but in our future selves? Or do we want to just grit our teeth and deal with this excruciating suffering that we're going through now, because we don't want to change, because we don't want to be kind to ourselves, truthfully? Even in meditation, nobody expects you to sit for 2-3 hours your first time meditating in one position that whole 2-3 hours. Nobody expects that. This is putting yourself through unnecessary suffering that may cause more damage than it will do good. Now, of course, in meditation, it's very slim chance that you'll ever truly do damage unless you really overdo yourself, over exceed your limits. But it's a great example to show that the suffering that we go through, even in meditation, is a perfect metaphor for how life suffering is. The longer we can condition ourselves to get used to certain sufferings, knowing that there is efforts being put forth that will bring good results. You're doing things out of the right spirit, out of the right mentality. Then that suffering is worth it. But it does not need to even be overdone in that sense. Like I said, there's no need to first time sit and do 2 or 3 hours. But your first time sitting, you want to do 30 minutes maybe. And there will be some suffering in that. So maybe you do 15 minutes. Maybe you do a little less. But eventually you work your way up through the suffering, through the pain, because you know that the benefit at the end will be worth it. Because suffering brings change. You sitting longer, you being able to still your body and mind for a longer period of time, you know will bring a change that you have been praying for, that you have been faithfully dedicating yourself to. An enlightenment process that you have dedicated a path toward. If we know a train is going, or if we know a road is going to lead exactly to where the destination that we want to go to is, we're going to take that road full speed ahead. But if we are unsure if this road exactly leads us straight to that destination, or maybe we had to take a left over here or a right over here, and we're asking all these different people, it's easy for us to miss the red flags, miss the opportunities to get realigned with our true path, because we're not so faithful in our works, not so faithful in our suffering. We're not sprinting full speed, sweating, because we're not completely sure this is going to lead to our destination. But we need to build that faith through the suffering and face it head on. When we feel the suffering coming, when we feel that this relationship is too much, this job is too much, this, city or town is too much, when you feel that every day is a pain and suffering, and you've been doing your spiritual work to, change your environment from the inside out, sometimes we have to realize that there needs to be a significant change as well that needs to happen in your environment. Not only a spiritual change, but a physical change needs to happen. Sometimes we need to leave this relationship, leave this job, and we don't need to wait until it gets to the extreme, till it becomes an abusive relationship, until the boss is calling you racist remarks or completely firing you, and you guys get into an argument about the fist fight or something. You don't need to wait to the extreme when you have a complete sickness that has manifested into your physical body and outer body, for you to finally say, okay, I need to change what I'm eating. I can't start my day with chips and coffee anymore. I need to eat some fruits and vegetables. I can't just live off meat. So suffering, unfortunately, forces us to change. But like I said, we don't need to wait until the suffering happens to change. We can learn knowledge now. We can learn wisdom now. We're in an age where everything is at our fingertips So why is there so much suffering? And the key thing is just ignorance. It's just people ignoring the truth. Them knowing the truth, but not actually even wanting to bring that truth to their awareness. They might hear a bit about it, and then they won't look more into it because that enough already scares them, and they just want to keep on their diet. They want to keep on their habits. They want to keep flying below the radar at work. They want to keep in the same relationship because, it's comfortable, even through the fights and the abuse. People think this way. They don't realize, and I used to be this type of person too, but we don't realize how vast and expansive this universe is, how loving this universe is when we are faithful and we are strong, ready to surrender for the suffering that the Lord wants us to go through, not the suffering what man is trying to put us through. We have to get to a point where we suffer in a form of surrendering to the Lord. We suffer for meditation. We suffer so that we can be of service even though we're so tired, to our wife, to our husband, to our kids. We suffer so that we can be loving at all times. We suffer so that we can make time for ourselves and refill up our own energy. We turn suffering into not suffering when you are aligned with your true self and when you have come to an awakening that everything in this world, everything in this universe is created with the same power and source that you have within. So stop suffering for no reason and suffer in a form of surrendering to righteousness, to living in alignment with the Most High and how we really should be walking this path. Everything in this life is happening for a reason. It's not just popping up in your life for, giggles and just randomosity. There's divine synchronicity that is trying to attract you to a life that is close to the Lord, that is close to that divine source that has created all things, to your true peace and serenity. Sometimes it takes that suffering to get that courage to get out of a bad situation, bad environment, a bad mindset. Sometimes we have to get so angry with life before we realize, it's us who needs to change how we are seeing life. It's us who is not being grateful. It's us who is not realizing how blessed that we are. Until then, we suffer. Until then, we think that we are a victim to life and that life is hard and full of suffering and there's no way out. But life comes with suffering because life comes with change. And once you truly are able to digest that and understand that, it doesn't become such a suffering type of vibration. It becomes more of a welcoming vibration. It becomes more of, this is a test. This is the Most High's seeing if these spiritual practices are really being understood by me. If I am really the person that I say I am and being that person to the best of my ability. Because if you're not, you're going to let suffering from the outside world trigger you in different ways, and you'll be able to notice it. You'll be able to see what you need to work on, and others will be able to see your slip-ups. Don't let people bring you out of your divinity. This is sometimes all people need is just one instant of a slip up, and then next they'll never forget that. They're like, oh yeah, that person's nice, but don't get them angry. That person's sweet, but yeah, when she gets frustrated, she's crazy. All it takes is one slip up to have a smudge on your name, and people not take your wisdom, take your path as seriously as they really should. Because to take up the path of enlightenment is such a blessing, is such a selfless act, an act of service, but people don't really understand it for themselves, and they take people like us for granted 9 times out of 10. So we have to do our best to always show the goodness, always be a devotee of the Lord in the best ways that we can, especially in public, but especially at home as well. And that's at home at your house and at your home within. We want to make sure that even our thoughts are clean. Even our thoughts don't suffer. And you'll be able to get to this place with meditation, with faith, with prayer, with building your wisdom and knowledge. You'll be able to turn suffering into a realization that a blessing is on its way, a miracle is on its way. Your prayers are about to be answered. Just stay patient, keep your meditation, keep your prayer, and enjoy the ride of this beautiful thing we call life. If you haven't, please like, comment, share, subscribe, and I appreciate everybody that tuned in. One love.